Happy evening to you. Today we will be doing lesson 4. Um, this one also to use as exponents, but it's actually putting it into kind of a real world kind of concept idea. And we're going to be thinking about a strip meter when it helps you, it says. And so you want to think about, tape measures or like a measuring stick, things like that that we use that are bigger than rulers because it's using a meter, which is kind of like a yardstick, but a little different. So when we think about these, the kinds of measurements that we're dealing with is we have millimeters, we have centimeters, and we have meters. So when you are going to say that you're thinking about 1 meter is equal to 100 centimeters, which is equal to 1,000 millimeters. And so if you have 1 whole meter, here's 1 meter. Let me get arrow over to this. There's 1 meter here. And then if we think about all the dots that are inside of this, it's also to that same distance is 100 centimeters, which is also to then 1,000 millimeters. 1,000 millimeters. So those are really small when you think about it. A meter's pretty big, because this is also to kind of like a yardstick, sort of, which is 3 feet about. That's close to being the same as a meter. So let's take a look at the ones that we're working with here. So we're going to take a look at B and D first. The reason why I picked those to go together is because we're going from centimeters to meters in both. Centi to meters in both. So taking a look at this very first one right here that's not yet done, I'll go to the one that is done in just a second. So we know that 100 centimeters, if 1 meter is equal to 100 centimeters. We're going from something large as far as the number goes. There's 100 of them. And we know it takes 100 of them to make 1. So this number right here is not going to get bigger. It's going to get smaller. So it's losing place values. So we're going to take that number that we've got, 108 centimeters, and it's equal to, let's say if 100 is equal to 1 meter, it's 108 is equal to 1 meter, and you have 8 hundredths extra. And so in order to get to that, what did we do? We divided by, we could say 100, but this says we need to be using exponents. And remember that 10 times 10 is the same as 100. So when we go to write it with an exponent, we think about that. How many 10s are you multiplying times itself? 2. So we can put our answer over here, 1 and 8 hundredths of a meter. Now let's do it again. 50 centimeters, 50 centimeters, and remember, because we're going from centimeters, just like the other one, we're going from centimeters to meters, we're dividing. And what are we dividing by? We're dividing by 10 to the second power. And we know that 50 is half of 100. So therefore, if we lose 2 place values, the 5 goes in the tens place to the tenths place. And remember, 0.5, 5 tenths. If you made it as a fraction, 5 tenths. 5 tenths, same as 5 tenths. which is also 2 when you go to simplify that, because it's a fraction. It's also 1/2. And then if we think about it, 50 is half of 100. Remember, it takes 100 to make a whole. Okay, so now let's go to the big guys. So 2 meters, and we're turning it into centimeters, and we know that this is 100 centimeters plus 100 more centimeters to get to 2 meters, right? 100 plus 100 is 200. And what did we do? We didn't divide this time because our numbers went from smaller to larger, so we multiplied. So let's do that on this one. So we're going from meters to centimeters. We're going 2 and 49 hundredths of a meter. And we're going to be gaining 2 place values. So the 2 is going to go from the ones place. It's going to gain 2 place values and move to the hundredths place. So if you think about that, so 2 meters, for every 1 meter, you've got 100 centimeters. We've got 2 meters, we've got 200 centimeters. And here we go, 2 is in the hundredths place. So we must be right. So now if we're going to work out what this looks like, we're going to say 2 and 49 hundredths. What are we doing? We're multiplying by 10 to the second power because we're multiplying by 100. And what do we get? 249. Now let's go to the next one that is from larger to smaller. So this is a larger measurement, but it's a smaller number. 6 meters, we know, is going to equal 600 centimeters, right? So 6 and 3/10. 6 and 3 stay together. And to make sure the 6 stays in the hundreds place, we have to put the 0 for the ones. So now what did we do? We said 6 and 3/10 we multiplied because there's 100 centimeters in a meter. We get our 100 by saying 10 squared. And what do we get? It gains 2 place values and becomes 630. Now let's go kind of looking at this one. This one right here, convert using an equation with an exponent, and then use your strip meter if it helps. So 4 meters, remember 1 meter is equal to 1,000 of these. And in this case, we're going from meters to millimeters, so our number is going to get bigger. We're going to be saying 4 times, how much does it take to make 1? 1,000 of them. So it's going to be 4,000. So 4 meters is equal to 4,000 millimeters. And now it's saying to make an equation with an exponent. So what we have to do in that case is we can't use that. But we can say 10 to the third power because it's 1 0 bigger than 100. And there's 3 zeros, so you have 3 for an exponent. Let's go the other direction. This one is 1,050 millimeters. We've got to figure out how many meters that is. So if we say 1,050, and we're dividing, how many millimeters are in a meter? 1,000. So we're going to divide by 10 to the third power. That's the same as 1,000. So we're going to lose, right, place values. How many are we going to lose? 3 of them. So that means that this is the ones, the tens, the hundreds. Those are your 3 place values. So your decimal is going to go so that those 3 end up in decimal places. So you end up with 1, and you could say 50 thousandths, or you could say 1 and 500ths. It means the same thing. So for your homework tonight, here's your problem. I am asking you to do both A and B. Convert using an equation with an exponent. So in this case, we're going from meters to centimeters. So you remember that for every meter, there's 100 centimeters. So the number is going to get bigger, right? So you want to think about this. This one's going to be multiplied because of that. This one if it's 40 millimeters and it takes 1,000 of them to make a meter, you're nowhere near having 1 whole meter, right? So it's going to be a small part of a meter. That means you're dividing. And you want to make sure it's going to be times 10 to the something, you figure it out, or divided by 10 to the something. Because thinking about how many place values. So if this one you're talking about 1,000, think, how do you make 1,000 as 10 to the what power? This one is going to be 100, right? 100 centimeters makes a meter. How many 10 times 10s do you have to do to get to 100? That's it for tonight. Thanks.